wanted to show you all how to make this chamfered edge on the table. Kind of adds a little bit more detail to it as well. So I'm going to delete it and show you how to get there. The last video we made these lovely tapered legs. So let's create, this time this is going to take away material, so I want to use a void form. And the sweep and the solid form and void form are really going to behave the same way. So if I show you in one rather than the other, it makes no difference. So with a sweep, just like with the blended surface, there are two sketches that we have to create, one for the path and one for sketching the path. So I'm going to pick a path by picking this tool here. This allows us to pick a three-dimensional surface or path. And if we pick it like that and it only picks one side, that's not what we want. So you want to make sure we pick the right tool to do this with. So one of the things we've got to also pay attention to is which plane we're working on. So I'm going to quit and get back in here and let's try setting our plane to the correct plane. So if we hit set plane, we want this to be set to the height plane. And then we can create a reference plane that goes from here to here. Oh, I'm creating the profile right now. Let me get out of that. Undo, undo. Did I get out of the whole thing? Okay, there we go. Let's start over. So create void sweep. I want to see what plane I'm on and make sure I'm on the correct plane that I want to use. So name plane height. That's going to be the top of the table, so that works. And then I want to go into sketch path. And I can use the rectangle tool to sketch the path on the surface of the table like that, and then lock it down. And you'll see when you do the sketch path if it's right, because it will give you a little work plane to draw your profile on. So that's done correctly now. And I have to go back to my modify sweep. And next we're going to create the profile. So I'm going to edit the profile, and I want to edit it while being in the left view because that's facing the same direction as that plane. So I should be able to use the pick line tool to pick the edge of the table here and here, and then use the line tool and grab the midpoint of this line here and draw that at a 45-degree angle and trim it. So now I've created the profile I want. When you hit the checkbox, we have one more time that we have to hit the checkbox by going back to that modify sweep ribbon. Do that one more time, and then we look at our reference, and we're going to see in our 3D view that it now has that chamfered edge. There's our 3D view with a chamfered edge. So that tool is kind of fun to work with and play around with. Obviously, because this is working with a profile, you can make your own profile as a profile family and import that profile family. So this can get really elaborate with some beadwork and a little reveal and all kinds of things. Okay, so that is the difference between an extrusion and a void. We could also make this a glass table by creating a void in here and then making another material for the inside. So that's the other thing I wanted to touch on, is how we can control the materials of these things. If we go into a shaded view, there we go. Right, so we go into a shaded view, it's just shading is gray because it just has the default material applied to it. if I wanted to be able to change the material in my Revit file when I bring this family in, I want to create a family or parameter for the material, so I can select all of these items and give them a different color, if you will, or material applied to them. So the way to do that is to select the item that you have, and across from material and the properties, it's right now just saying by category. But if we click on associate parameter and I create a new parameter here and call this tabletop material, everything else, notice, is grayed out, and choices have been made here because of how we added the parameter. So this is going to show up when I bring it into a Revit file, and it will allow me to change the material that I want to use for my top of table. So now I have a material that can be applied for the top of the table. So maybe I want a different material for the table legs. So you just select one of the table legs and do the same thing. So let's create a new material for that. And then if I want to make sure everything else has the same material as that first table leg I selected, I can select all the table legs. And you see now I have a little question mark showing up next to materials because one of them has got a material category applied to it. The rest are generic. If I hit that little question mark, I can associate all of them with the table leg material. So what does that do with that? That allows you to go up here and go into your family types parameters. And I have two parameters here, and I can fix the spelling of this, by the way. I can highlight that and edit the parameter, and spell it correctly. And I could choose a material that I'd like to use for the table legs. So let's click on by category. This usually takes a second for the materials editor to load up. And I'm going to look for a nice wood material. And let's have the table legs be, I don't know, a cherry. So I'll select cherry from the list. I want to make sure I'm using that rendered appearance in my model. And then for the tabletop, let's go back into wood. I'm going to pick a different material. We'll do white oak, I guess, just so it really has a contrasting color. We want to use the rendered appearance. Okay, there we go. So now we have the actual materials appearing here on the table. And if we put on realistic materials, that's the way it's going to look. And if I save this and bring it into a project, let's open up a new project. You can go into components and load that table family. Look at it in a 3D view. Turn on our realistic shading, and those materials come in with it. They're also now loaded into the project. So what if I wanted to change it? Notice that I can't change those materials here. That's because I made those materials a type parameter. If I go into edit type, now I can change those materials. But if you'd like it for those materials to be able to be edited right there in properties, then you can make it an instance parameter. So by making an instance parameter rather than a type parameter, let's do that now. I'll go into now back in the table family file. If I change both of these by editing them to an instance, I'll change one so you can see the difference. So this, notice it says default next to that now instead of the material, because that's just the starting material. I can change it because it's an instance parameter now, not a type parameter. type parameter means that I need to make a brand new type of table, or otherwise I'll be changing every table of that type loaded into the project. An instance parameter allows me to edit one table out of those types, and it will not affect the others. So we'll see that reaction here. I'm just going to load it back into the project and overwrite the existing version. We'll go back into the 3D view, and I should be able to now change the table leg material here, but I cannot change the tabletop material. And I can change the leg material to, let's say, metal. Change it to anything. So I want to make it stainless steel. And now I've got stainless steel legs with the white oak tabletop. If I wanted to change the white oak tabletop, let's make 2 copies of these here. You can see what happens if I have several versions of them. In this version, I'm going to set the table legs back to the cherry. So those are back to the cherry. Notice it didn't affect the others. In this one here, I'm going to edit the type and change the white oak to a completely different thing. Let's do something really crazy different, like glass. We'll do glass block. And what's going to happen is all of the tables change to glass block because I made a change to that type, which means everything of that type changes. When I have something that's an instance, only that one item I have selected is going to be changed. So that's a really important distinction to make. If you want it to behave one way or the other, you have to decide whether or not something's going to be an instance or a type parameter. So I'll stop there with those additional things, and we'll look a little bit more into some of the other features that we can do with families.